Right, here we are. We're here in the studio live for the Red Deer extravaganza, and we have one of the most knowledgeable fellas kicking around on the Red Deer subject, Mr Kev Schilf. Welcome.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me.
In the new studio, mate. I think you guys had Dave and Furphy on the other day. That was probably the first episode, but yeah, I think you guys are one of the first to come in here. So yeah, welcome.
It's a cracking spot, mate. You've done well. It's very impressive. This table is next level. Really cool.
Yeah, it's one more coat to go. I think we're chatting off here. I hit it with 1,000 sandpaper right where it was, and I just scratched it up a bit. So yeah, one more coat one of these days, but I'll get around to it. So
Looks pretty bloody neat, mate.
Sure, I was going to get a few dents in it and a few marks along the way. But speaking of that, mate, cheers to you, brother. Thanks for coming in. You got a
Cheers,
little
mate.
drink there.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, brother. Righto, so obviously the purpose of tonight is we're leading into the rut. Everyone's pretty excited. It's a great time of year, and we have been sort of chatting for a little bit about putting together a bit of an episode, some do's and don'ts, maybe some mistakes to avoid during the rut, which we'll get into, but I thought a pretty good way to open the show, well, not the best way to open the show for you, but was to talk about, on your personal perspective, what you had planned this year for the rut. And what's actually transpired and what's how it's going to unfold, mate. So yeah, let's get into that first.
Yeah, right. She's been a bit of a bloody roller coaster leading into this year. So I was fortunate enough to be part of a group who drew a block in Fiordland, and it was for the third period for the Wapiti over there with the Wapiti Foundation. So it was something that I wanted to do my whole hunting life. And yeah, it all happened the way that we wanted it to. It wasn't a great block, but still have the opportunity to go to Fiordland and hunt the Wapiti over there is just next level to me. And of course there's reds over there as well, and hybrids, probably predominantly hybrids, but started gearing up, paying all the bills for that, booking flights and training hard for that. And around comes Australia Day, and I'm like any other Australian. I love Australia Day. And the opportunity came up to play a bit of backyard cricket. And I'm old enough to know better than to be competitive still, mate. And the heart is willing, but sometimes the body doesn't want to supply the hardware for what the heart wants to do, or the head. And a bit of backyard cricket and tips and run. I just wanted to hit the skin off the ball actually, and just be 6 and out. But I swung the bat that hard that I nearly pulled my shoulders out of joint, and it just contacted the ball at it, spun in spot, and sat there spinning, and tips and run. I went to take off, and I ripped the proximal tendon, which is the top of your hamstring tendon. I ripped it straight off my pelvis bone. So I did a pretty significant gorilla biscuit straight into the grass, face first.
Sniper got you.
Yeah, sniper got me. Face planted. And I knew straight away I was in trouble when my leg wouldn't move. Everybody was laughing at the start because they thought, oh, the big fella's down. He's tripped or something. But no, it was a little bit more sinister than that. And, ambulance, morphine, the whole 9 yards.
The green whistle, mate. Pen thrown.
Green whistle first, and that didn't put a dent in the pain levels. Yeah. So they hit me with morphine, which was awesome. And then I had surgery 2 days later to reattach, and here we are 6 weeks later, and I just got my Forrest Gump brace off yesterday. I've been walking around like a half-open pocket knife for 6 weeks when I could walk. But yeah, I think I'm allowed to do a little bit of load bearing. As well as I do. I've been out in front of that a little bit. But yeah, I'm officially allowed to do some load bearing next week, and as of the 22nd, my 2025 rut starts. That's when I'm hitting the hills. I'm going into camp on the 22nd. So, yeah, I was only going to be doing weekends up until my 2-week trip to New Zealand, but now it's a 2-week trip into Red Deer country in the South Burnett.
No fjord land, obviously, mate, because it's for people that probably don't know if they understand or not, but that's at least a 12-month recovery from that sort of injury, like clean rip off the pelvis bone, surgery to reattach.
Yep. The specialist told me I'll never deadlift again. That's how serious that repair is there. So, not serious, like not serious weight. And we're all blokes, right? We like to just challenge ourselves, but yeah, highly recommended that I don't challenge myself in a deadlift ever again. So,
Yeah, not, like you said, fucking hell, like we've had a bit of a laugh in that, but mate, pretty devastating. You draw that block for people that maybe don't know. You don't just say I'm going to go there. You got to draw. It's like a ballot system. You got to draw it.
yeah.
And you got to get pretty lucky to even get there. But then obviously to have that happen, it's probably put a bit of a dampener on things for you, no doubt.
Yeah, it hurt. Missing out on the opportunity hurt more than the actual injury, and the injury hurt like absolute hell. So I had to just get my head around it that it wasn't going to happen. It made me angry. It really upset me to a point of being angry for about a week, I reckon. And then I just had to. You have to change your mindset. You have to be okay. You have to let those feelings in and just deal with it and. Get rid of it and move on. There's nothing I can do, and my recovery's been extremely quick. Even up to yesterday, the specialist said he said you're flying. You need to you need to settle down a little bit. And then I told him,
I think I fucking told you that a few times over the last few weeks.
You screamed at me,
holding the chainsaw. What the fuck, idiot?
Put that fucking thing down. I'm not ringing your missus. But everybody like you guys in the hunting group have taken exceptional care of me. The help for the education weekend 2 weekends ago was phenomenal, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the guys. But I'm good. I'll be taking it easy. I won't be carrying any stags out on my back this year. I'll leave that to all the younger guys. But I'll be there calling them in and having fun and watching everybody else capitalise, which is what it's all about for me these days.
Mate, yeah. Well, like I said, I thought we'd just touch on that because there's a bit of a story in it. But you're right. In what you were saying, it's with that mindset stuff. It's like it's however you perceive it to be. Like it's as fucked or as good as you want it to be, isn't it? Really,
That's
like,
right.
And nothing's going to change that, unfortunately.
Nope. No, just change plans. Plans change all the time, and we say it a lot. Don't fall in love with your plan. And I was absolutely smitten with my plan.
It's a good plan, bro.
It just got torn away from me along with the tendon.
Oh, fuck. Well, anyway, it was good. Yeah, good little interlude there. But again, we were going to talk some. Things to avoid, mistakes to try and avoid, and some things that can possibly help people out this Red Deer sort of rut. We did throw it out there. We had a little yarn and thought it might be a good idea to throw out just online to get some people, if they had questions to sort of that they would like to pick your brain while you were sitting down here. So we got a heap of questions, which I've sort of tried to put into a bit of an episode format. So. The first one is from Jack, and it was basically, what are the starting dates for the Red Deer Rut, and will that vary throughout different locations in Australia, depending on weather and stuff like that, and daylight?
Yep. So I've spoken a few times about the rut and what the deer, what seems to be, and I don't think there's 100% proof of what actually triggers them. But it's in theory, it's the length of day, the solstice, and what actual length of day that is, I don't know anybody who's got the proof to that. But there's a lot of other things that come into play to me, and that's weather conditions, temperature, moon phases. A lot of people say it's not the moon phase. I think everything plays off the moon. You talk about fishing and everything else like that. It all plays off the moon. But by and large, they say it's the solstice and length of day. So it does, length of day doesn't really vary that much, but all over the country, right? It's length of day is the length of day. It's the times that we utilise, Australian Eastern Standard Time and all that sort of crap that changes. So it basically should be the same all over the country, right? But they don't. In the Upper Hunter, in my experience when I was living down there, they started earlier than up here in Queensland. I always sort of went by like the 25th being a really early, 25th of March being a really early start in Queensland, whereas the guys, the stags down in the Upper Hunter, they were starting around that 15th sort of mark when I was living down there, which was around 2010, and they were like clockwork, really.
Right.
The fallow varied a lot down there, but the reds they were pretty bang on each year. I was down there for 4 years, and you could just about bet London to a brick that they'd start up around that 15th mark.
Right.
So, but up here, in the last 3 years, these guys up here have gone earlier than usual. And that's why, like last year, they were roaring. There were stags. I've got videos of stags roaring on the 8th of March in Queensland. Never seen that before. But I'm hitting the hills. I know that nobody's heard any real roaring yet. But after this weather event, and we'll touch on that, no doubt. Yeah, I'd say that it's coming. The temperatures will drop, as it always does, and it's coming pretty quick. The boys, I'd say, would be on their march now, moving out of their little bachelor pads and heading off, and they'll start roaring, which will then trigger the girls. It's the sound of that triggers the girls to start their cycle. So.
Awesome. And I think we were chatting off air. So for the point of this episode, we won't go right back to the absolute in-depth basics. We've sort of talked about that, I think, on our last year's podcast, and you've done a couple with Maddie from Becoming a Bowhunters podcast. So if people really want to know the absolute, grassroots sort of red deer sort of techniques or more about the actual, like that, what is really bringing them in, and you go right into depth in those. So we'll probably leave that stuff there, but go and have a listen to those podcasts if you're just starting out and you don't really know too much about it. But we'll probably aim this episode at people who've sort of a little bit of an idea maybe in their first couple of years, but they maybe have experienced or people in their career have experienced a rut or two, and then we're just going to try and work on some stuff from there, mate. So one of the tied in with the first question, it's on everyone's lips, I guess, at the moment in Queensland, is Cyclone Alfred and the wet weather. How do you think that is going to sort of play out for this year's rut, like in relation to delaying or bringing forward, or how do you think that's going to affect things?
It all depends on, like I just mentioned, it depends on the temperature after. Like it's a tropical cyclone. So it got quite humid, got quite warm. We get the weather event, we got the wind, we got the rain, which is great on the coast, but it is now just hitting inland. So some of the properties that I hunt, I was talking to them yesterday, and they said, we had 3 inches of rain yesterday. And there's more coming. I'm just listening to it, and I got a smile on my dial that big. If I was a chick, I would have got lipstick on my ears, mate, because it fills the water holes, the wallows, gets the rivers running, just makes everything quieter underfoot. And I know that I'm going to be up there in a week's time, and I've looked at the weather for temperature, and it's dropping. It's dropping significantly over the next couple of weeks. So that makes me smile because I know that that's going to encourage the boys to do their thing. We all, nearly always, sometimes not so much in the summer, once you get rain, if you're out in the paddock and you get rain, feel the temperature drop over the next half a day to a day, it drops significantly, and then it changes again. Or it'll either keep getting colder or it'll warm back up again. So now we're in the change of season. I would expect now after that weather event that the temperature is going to drop.
Yeah, right, okay.
And the red deer love it. They're a European deer, right? So they're not like a rusa or a samba. They come out of Indo-Asia, but these guys are European and they like the cold weather.
Yeah. I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? If you're sitting there yelling at the top of your lungs all day, you'd probably rather do it in colder weather than and run around fighting everyone. You'd probably rather have it be a little cooler day than in the sun, right?
Damn Skippy, I know I would. I like aircon. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, okay. Because last year, mate, there was a rain. You know, it rained a fair bit last year, and that pushed things back a little bit, didn't it? I think it was a bit later. Like they really started to fight.
My phone ran hot last year of people asking me what the hell's going on with the rut. The deer aren't rutting. What's happening? They were rutting. It was just that people, A, didn't want to be out in the rain to listen to them.
Meow.
Yeah. And B, they didn't want to encourage them to talk to them if they did go out. So activity creates activity, right? So we were out in the rain. I think we only missed like 2 days. It was just too heavy to hunt. And we would just mimic the rut as much as we could, the raw. And I nearly ran myself hoarse on a couple of days there. But they absolutely responded. They lit up, and I was sort of like, get out. I was responding to people saying, just get out there and make it happen. They will roar to you. You just need to encourage them. It's difficult unless you've had that experience to know, because I'll say a lot, hey, don't roar too much. But if they're not roaring, what have you got to lose? If they're roaring and they answer your roar, just
go to them.
Use that as a locator and go and play with them. But if they're not roaring at all, and it's that time of year where you've seen on social media or you've heard from your landowner that they've been roaring, but they've shut down, don't be scared to roar. Yeah, get them going. They love it. Yeah.
Like you said, you got nothing to lose, really, have you? Because you got nothing. You got nothing at that stage.
You're out there.
Fucking hard to find them without a roar, isn't it?
Yep. You're off the couch. And do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, okay. Mate, there was a question from sort of on the opposite side of that. I think DP Dawson sent in a question was, wherever he's located, the wallows seem to be bone dry at the moment, and he knows there's been good activity on those wallows over the previous ruts, but how will that sort of affect things? That was his question.
It's a good question. I know a lot of guys, they make it their business to wet the wallows if it's bone dry, because we all know that, well, we've spoken about it in other podcasts, that deer wallow for a few reasons. Most importantly, during the rut, is so that they can spread their scent on trees, keeps insects off them, cools them down. You'll see deer just go for a swim and stand in the water to cool down. But the wallowing activity is important to them to be able to then wipe that mud on trees at different levels, different heights, different spots of their body, and it leaves their scent on trees and they marking territory and all the rest of it. So that's an important part during the rut that gets taken away if the wallows. If it's in a drought situation, that gets removed. So I would just be concentrating where there's water in that situation. If there's no water anywhere, you'll be highly unlikely to find deer around, let alone, don't worry about the wallows if they're that dry. The deer will make an opportunity. They will actually stand in where there is water. So the wallows are dry, they'll go and find water and they'll pour the water out to make a muddy spot, and they'll piss in it and all the rest of it, and they'll create another wallow.
Right.
It's an important part of their rutting. Yeah. So if their wallows are dry but there's a water source, that's where I'd be going to. If there's no water source, pack up and go somewhere else.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe focus the energy around that water source, regardless if those other ones are dry or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
If there is a water source sort of nearby, the other ones are dry, like you said, you touched on it before. Wetting was an option as well, like splashing a bit of water around and trying to get something going.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys, they utilise the, I think they're called CB7s. CB, oh, they're in a pod anyway, and they just stick them on a trailer, and they'll just drive out to the wallows and open the valve and just fill it up full of water, and then drive away. It's a good thing to do. It'll take a couple of days for your scent to leave that spot, but 6 hours of UV light anyway. But wetting that wallow is a good thing to do because they will come and piss in it and wallow in there. They don't get much mud on them, but they'll still, it's still having the effect that they want.
And maybe get something going. Yeah, okay. But on the temperature side of things this year, you sort of touched on it, but how do you reckon, at this stage this year, do you reckon we are cooler than last year? I think we were out at a block recently, we were having a bit of a chat about it, and you thought maybe it was a bit cooler this year.
Yeah, we were already, when we were at that block, and that was a couple of weeks ago now, it was already down around the 13 degrees, 14 degrees overnight, which is great for this time of year. Last year, we were flat out getting under 15 at any time of the year. I think the one good morning that we had in the bush was quite crisp. It was about 10 or 11. But the rest of it was overcast and drizzly, and the cold weather just wasn't there. They still, like I said, they still played the game, but they weren't full of vigour like they normally are. It takes it out of them. The rut actually is really taxing on a stag because they don't eat much, and all they do is fight and shag and run around like idiots protecting their harem. And I know I'd rather do that in the cool, and I would rather, if it's hot, I'd just rather lay under a shady tree and have a think about it. But yeah, it all matters to them. Yeah. But this year is shaping up to be nice and cool, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Along the same sort of lines, there was another question that came in, sort of talking about hunting in the middle of the day. So, should I hunt the middle part of the day, or should I break it up into, I think I know what your answer is going to be here, but middle and afternoon, or what, what is stag's activity sort of looking like? When it wakes up and then it goes through its morning routine. Can we run through that a little bit and then answer that question in relation to what you like to do in relation to hunting during the day or not?
Okay, so during the rut and most of the other time as well, stags, deer in general, are all night. They'll be doing their thing all night. When it comes to the rut, if you've got a nice cool day, even like a slight drizzly rain all day, a stag will rut all day. He will go about his business. If it is cool in the morning and then the temperature drops, the temperature rises, he will go and bed up. He will lay down under a tree where there's heaps of breeze, and his girls will be around him usually, bedded and facing out different ways. And he will just conserve energy and just bed up. It's too hard for them. It's too taxing. If there's a girl who's in estrus or a hot hind, he'll probably bed up closest to her. If something else comes in, he's quick to get up on his feet and defend her. But as far as during the rut goes, you hunt in your mornings, get out early. Don't be scared to walk around with the red. Well, I think all the go now is the red light on your head torch because game can't pick it up or something like that. I just run a head torch. I don't care. They don't really care that much. Get out, get into position, and as that sun comes up, as it breaks the horizon, that temperature drops that little bit, 1 or 2 degrees, and they usually go off their heads at that point. They should already be going off if they're in full rut. And then you've got a couple of hours to play with them. If they bed down, that then plays into if you can see them bed down, if you don't pressure them, you can hatch a plan to stalk in. There isn't anything wrong with shooting a stag that's laying down in his bed. Just know that you need to look around him as much as possible, because that's where his girls will be.
Eyes everywhere.
Unless he beds down solo. So, which is also a possibility. In the afternoon, I call 3 o'clock deer o'clock. If we're not out looking hard by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we've probably had too many cans in the middle of the day, and we're calling it a day. So, we're normally out by 3 o'clock, and by 4:30, you can normally get them roaring if you've had a warm day. 3 o'clock on a cool day, they'll be going. You just hunt until dark. And hunting in the afternoon frustrates the shit out of me, because sometimes you just get into where you need to be, and then you just lose shooting light, which you can always back out and come back in the morning. They won't be far away if you leave them undisturbed. But hunt in the afternoon, as much as I love hunting any time, Jesus, I've had some pretty challenging afternoons where, you just run out of time. Yeah.
I think last year we sort of hunted early sun up or before sun up for that couple of hours, and then it was getting back to camp. It was a good chance to sort of rest your legs a bit, have some beers, have a cook up. Yeah, it's awesome to be out there chasing them, of course. And I know you can be too keen, and I've probably been a victim of doing that. But it is a good chance if you have some sort of firm base to get back there, have a good feed, work on your plan for the next day, work out your strategies, where they were, where you think is a good spot to start back at in that afternoon, rather than just sort of walking around aimlessly. Because then it's got its other issues as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. Like walking in the afternoon, UV light sterilises the ground and the grass and all that, for you. So when you hunt in the morning, the sunlight actually takes that scent away. It does its job. 6 hours of it, apparently. I'm no scientist. But if you go out hunting in the evening and you scent it all up, it's not getting any daylight. So that scent's still there in the morning. It's going to be till the next evening. But in the morning, you've got all that midday stuff. So you might as well not scent. You hunt hard in the morning, get the hell out, go and have a rest, because unless you've got a bedded animal that you want to hatch a plan on, go and rest up, because that's what your animal that you're choosing to hunt is doing. And then go back out in the afternoon if you want to. Unless you're chasing a particular animal, I try and hunt the areas that have got less activity in the afternoon, because in the morning, the really hot spots, it's hopping in the morning. So
yeah, okay. And it's hard, as I said. You're so keen. You worked hard. You've been practicing all year, and you're fucking half fit, and you're like, I just really want to work hard. The harder I work, the luckier I'm going to get here. But sometimes it isn't the case, like you said, because you can go and fucking set everything up and walk through areas where you probably shouldn't have, and then you're just doing yourself a fucking disservice, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can pressure an area too much. You absolutely can.
What about in relation to that? Let's say he's bedded down. Semi-solos might have one or two girls there, but you're happy enough to you move into a position, and then you bump that deer. Is that deer coming back there anytime soon, or have you should you just wait another day? Like, will it come back a day later, or are you fucked for a few days?
So you bump him out of his bed?
Yeah, you move it in. He's like, hang on, he gets you in, and he just goes, fuck, I'm out of there. He's
not coming back that day. He might not come back for a week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They have so many bedding spots. They'll just bed wherever they want to. They can be out in the middle of a paddock and just bed under a sucker, and you wouldn't be able to pick that. A lot of the time, they will head back into the tree line, because they're fringe dwellers, right? They'll head back into a tree line and pick a nice ridge where they can see both sides, and the wind is coming up to them because of the thermals and all the rest of it. But sometimes they'll just bed in the middle of an open paddock where there's a sucker growing where they get that little bit of shade from. They might have a nice patch of grass there that they want to get straight into at deer o'clock. You just watch and learn from these animals, and I think that's the most important part is taking the time to sit down and watch and learn about them. Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm looking forward to this year is obviously learned a bit since last year, but talking to a lot of people and thinking about it a lot. But of course, I'd love an opportunity on a stag. But one thing I want to try and do this year is get some film of them in their natural environment, work out what they're doing, how they're acting, and just not be quite as sort of awestruck by the sound of all the roars. It is like Jurassic Park for people who are just sort of experiencing it. It's an unbelievable time. But yeah, that's one thing this year for me is really to sort of try and observe them. A lot of guys I've spoken to, yourself and experienced guys, are like, just watch them in the natural environment, and sort of, but it's hard, I guess, if you're so fucking excited, you're not really thinking about what they're doing. You're just like, fuck it, they're coming in or not,
Yeah. It gets, it takes over your thought process. You know what the right thing to do is, you know what you have to do, but then you go, fuck it, I'm going to go and chase him. Yeah, it gets pretty exciting, and I think that's one of the hardest parts of doing what I do, and wanting to nurture people into deer hunting is you have to really try and get them to settle down, and it's so hard to do. I know myself, even when I started out rifle hunting, I was like a kid in a candy store. You know what I mean? And now still, it doesn't matter whether I'm carrying a bow, which is probably about 20% of the time, or not. I still get excited. I get excited for the person. You know what I mean? And I want to see everybody be successful. But I suppose the most important thing is take your opportunities where you get them. Get the monkey off your back. If you haven't got one already, if you get an opportunity, you just take it. Yeah. Don't worry about what everybody else is going to think of you. If it's a young stag and you don't have an animal yet, just do it. It takes a lot of anxiety out of your hunting. You get to relieve a lot of pressure off yourself because you know you can do it then. A lot of guys seem to think that deer have got superpowers. No, they don't. They're just a critter. And they're a lot lower than us on the food chain. Yeah, it's not easy. It's a challenge, but when you break it all down, it's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, again, yeah, it's sort of, and I think of course we're going to talk about what happened last year with me. I just sort of got this is inexperience and sort of just overawed by it, and just sort of got caught napping, didn't draw back on a nice deer, and. I learned a lot of things from that this year, but, it's, I think from your perspective, you've been doing this a long time and you've taken a lot of people hunting, which is obviously going to be super frustrating for you guys watching everyone fuck these things up. And so many guys I've spoken to, and even just when I've travelled to different podcast, people have gone, hey, do you know the first time I hunted with this bloke or Summers or you, I did this, I shot like 3 meters above this deer, I shot it in the antlers, I fucking shot like way away from it, and I'm like, fuck, okay, well... That's good to hear, but you try and get people to calm down, but I heard you say you get excited. Like I can hear, you're getting excited. You're like the way that you call deer and stuff. It's all fucking happening. So it's sort of you get caught up in this moment where you're doing all these things, and you're sort of fucking barking orders and get over there, do this. Yeah, he's coming here, fucking. And I'm like, holy fuck. It gets shit ramps up pretty quick, eh?
Yeah, it happens really quick. That actual scenario. Like he was a hill away, and we'd only moved 80 yards, maybe 80 metres, and I let out that hind call, and he roared right below us, and he'd moved probably 400 metres really quickly, and he was right under us, and he was coming through that lantana. All I could see was his antlers coming through. You need to get the fuck down there.
I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
But that's one thing as well, just talking about that, how you mentioned that, is the way that these fuckers can move. Like, man, they cover ground. Like, I was like, I don't even know if he's coming or when he's coming, and then all of a sudden, he was literally standing right in front of me, and I hadn't even drawn back. But fuck, they can cover ground compared to us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 4 legs are better than 2, right? And they are just balls of muscle, and they can just travel, and nothing gets in there. Like, they just move over stuff, and they do it silently. Like, if he didn't roar, there was no way that we would have known that he was directly below us. Like, to let us know that, hey, you need to get over there real quick. But if it makes you feel any better, it wasn't too long after that. Summers and I were in a very similar spot, not far away from that. And we knew that he had been shot, that fellow. The next door neighbour had shot him because he was sharing a boundary line, right? And we were out, and Summers had just shot a meat animal at, like, I don't know, something ridiculous, 5 metres or something. I've got that on video somewhere too. It's pretty cool. And yeah, that young stag, he came around a lantana bush while Summers was going the opposite way, and I ended up virtually yelling out to Summers, "Hey, he's beside you!" But yeah, he saw him, and he shot him. But while he was working on that animal, I heard another one roar, and I let out a hind call, and I could hear him coming, and I went down, and we met at a spur at the same time. And he was an absolute. He was a shooter. He wasn't a trophy. He was a big cull head. He was a big 3x4, I think he was. Big heavy head, probably, I don't know, 36 long, 37 long. And we came face to face pretty much. And at about, I don't know, 4 or 5 metres, we just locked eyes on each other. So it happens, mate. Like, I was kicking myself. I should have stopped and waited on the other side of that spur, because I knew he was coming. I just didn't know where he was, and I was on a deer trail because I was moving quickly, and I should have stopped. My experience should have told me, stop here. He's going to come around somewhere. You don't know. If you go around that blind corner, he could be right there. But I didn't. I was too excited. And I went around, and there we were, face to face.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it happens, mate. It's just hunting.
Yeah. So on that there, if you throw some hind calls out, whatever, and the deer starts to come into you, but then you've sort of lost, you're like, fuck, whereabouts? I don't know. I can't pinpoint where he is. Your suggestion there is just hold for a little bit rather than just sort of keep moving, just hold.
Yep.
Try and maybe throw out another call, or just try and relocate before you're moving, because then you say blowing him out or stepping on top of him.
Yeah, it depends on the scenario, the lay of the land, the vegetation, like the foliage, the cover. If you've got clear view, just sit back. Don't call too much, because hinds just don't sit there calling out for no reason. It's another reason you use a fawn call, right? Something to talk to. So they know, they understand that hind's calling her baby. But yeah, if you've got the time, just sit back, hind call. If he roars and then roars again in the same spot, you know that he's sitting still. Then you can inch your way forward with caution if time permits. But yeah, by all means, they do get frustrated and they will come looking. They're inquisitive by nature. So they will come and have a look. Sometimes they won't move. If he's got a group of girls there with him, he won't come. But you'll soon work out whether he's going to come or not. Yeah, they make up their mind pretty quick.
Yeah, okay. One thing, I think we touched on it last time we chatted about this, but standing in front of bushes rather than sort of, I think people maybe quite often might think they should be standing behind cover or a bush or something like that. But I think on that day we were there, you're like, get in front of that fucking thing, use your cam, don't move too much, That's one little thing I think maybe for inexperienced people, they'd be hiding behind shit, silhouetting themselves and that movement behind that bush.
Yep. So said it a heap before, say it again, because people forget stuff. And this is deer hunting 101. They don't see colour. They see shape, they see form, they see movement. Now, your camo isn't there to because of its pretty colours. You know what I mean? It's designed to break up your outline so you look like part of the landscape. That's it. Unless you've washed your camo in Omo bright whites or bloody something stupid like that, you will blend in. Why I say about the dishwashing, the washing detergent. Washing detergent uses UV refraction to make its whites look whiter and its brights look brighter. That's not what you want your hunting gear to do. You want your hunting gear, you want to wash it in like wool wash, and there's certain gimmicky laundry detergent that you can buy for your camo that it doesn't utilize UV refraction to make it look bright. It's a tool. It's a very important tool, and you use that to break up your outline. So if you've got a good solid backdrop behind you and you're sitting nice and still, remember they see movement, right? If you're sitting nice and still or standing nice and still, they are not going to see you. The only thing they'll see perhaps is your hands. That's why we blacken out the back of our hands, and your face, and that's why we wear a buff. Or if you're like me, you got a silver flag, and that buff is important. And eyes, they'll see your eyes too. Got to remember where predators and eyes are in the front of our heads, and they absolutely pick up on that stuff.
Yeah, it feels strange when you're sitting out in the middle of the open there. You're like, fuck, he's just going to spot me. But like, you just trust your cam and don't move.
Yeah. Having confidence in your gear and knowing how it works, understanding how it works is key to being successful with these critters. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Mate, can we talk a little bit about some calls? I think one of the guys, Fight Lift Hunt, I think he's on Insta. He maybe just put out a bit of a question around, raw techniques, tones, when to and when not to throw out a hind call or a raw. I think we were chatting not so long ago, and I think one of your bugbears, you said, I think you had a bit of time, obviously you were pretty banged up. You were like, I see people calling at the wrong times when they're posting videos and they think the wind got their stag or blew them out, but really it was more in relation to ill-timed call. Can we talk a little bit about when that is, like when is a bad time to throw out a call in relation to if the deer can see you, or I think one of the things we talked about was, is it fucking looking at you or not? Is that a good time? Or Yeah.
So these animals are super switched on, right? Their eyesight is ridiculous. Their hearing is phenomenal. And their sense of smell is just beyond belief. So it makes sense that you need to, if you're in close proximity to an animal and you're going to call them, you make sure that you've got your outline broken up again. Use your camo. Don't go calling with your face uncovered, and don't go moving your hands around when you're calling. It's really hard when you're roaring, but you don't really want to roar an animal when you're close to them anyway. That's all. For me, in my experience, I use hind calls when I'm close to them. And I can do that without having to move my hands. I can do that without having to move my mouth. I can do it when I'm at full draw. And these are all things to practice, right? So most important thing with calling when not to call is when that animal is looking for you. If they've got their ears like forward, like you'll see a deer, they're relaxed, their ears are sort of sitting out to the side and they're all cool, and they'll shake their head a lot and they'll twitch their ear. They're relaxed at that point. If their ears are stern forward, they are using them as a locating beacon. And if they're looking for you and you make a sound, even though you're sounding like a deer, they will find you and they will pinpoint your position. And no matter what you do, even when you blink, after they've pinpointed your position, they're going to blow out or they're going to start barking. Stags bark like hinds. It's just 5 times louder and 5 times deeper, and it will scare the shit out of you when they bark. If you've never heard one in close proximity bark, it's something else.
What's it doing there, Kevy? So when you hear it bark, some people are like, it's fully seen you and now you're fucked. But I've heard you talk about maybe they are in two minds. They're trying to work out what you are.
That's what they're doing. They're warning others that there's something there that they're not sure on. And I have just melted into a lantana bush or my surroundings and just been really, really quiet and just let everything settle down. And they all just settled down and went about their business. Sure as shit, they kept looking up at the same spot. Look up. And if I would have moved, I guarantee you they would have taken off. Like if I would have changed my position, because they remember, right? Now, sometimes, here's another little point. If you get busted and they're looking at you, they're staring at you, you'll see, especially a lead hind, they're bastard things. God, every one of them needs to be...
Shoot them fuckers there.
Yeah, turn them into turn them into burger mince, mate. Jeez.
Because there's a lead hind, isn't there? Sorry.
Always an older sign in a group, and the stag will just hang off of everything that she does. And she will scare the shit out of everything in the county too. Like, they'll light up other groups of deer. Like, where we are lucky enough to hunt, there is multiple herds of deer. And they will alert, like a lead hind will alert another group of deer on another hilltop. They're terrible. Yeah. They'll run off and be barking as they're running. They're bastard things. But they will look at you and go, what's that? And then you can be perfectly still. And if they'll go to put their head down or look away, and if you go to move because you think that you're right, they'll put their head back up really quickly to see if you're in the same position, and that'll be it. They'll just start barking. They're things. But as far as calling, if you cannot see a deer, call away. But not repetitive. It's not something, like I said before, hinds just don't stand there calling and calling and calling. They will know that something's up. Once they do come looking for you, they can't see a deer, right? So they're expecting to see a deer. Now, there's a lot to be said for decoys. Like, if you can put up a decoy, and I know there's some bloody top fellas in the industry right now working on some Red Deer decoys. I thought about it. I've got to do my real job as well to pay the bills. But they've been sending me some stuff, and they look exceptional. Now, if you've got a good decoy and you can put it up and you can hind call, if you're hunting solo, that's a game changer, especially if it looks real, if it looks really real. Yeah.
And would you advise setting up in close proximity to the decoy to call, like not straight behind it, but like close to it?
So I would set it up off to your side, because what we want to achieve, which has been really hard for me my whole bow hunting career, because I call deer in, right? So they come straight to me. So I'd say 75% of the deer that I have that I've taken have been frontal shots, which are hard. They're devastating. That animal dies really quickly, but they're hard. So what we want to do, so you go from a target the size of a tennis ball, if you're taking a full sidle shot, like side-on shot, it becomes a basketball, right? So with fully inflated lungs, you've got a basketball-sized target. And that's what you want to do. You want to put your decoy off to the side, and when you call, they'll hear your voice, but they'll see the decoy and they'll head towards it. And that's what you want. You want that side-on shot.
Same will be said if you're hunting in pairs, though, right? And someone else was calling for you. Same basic setup.
Yeah, like I did for you last year. You were a little bit close to me, so that stag, he came up in between the pair of us. So he was still a quartering on shot, which is difficult. But when he moved off to the side, he was full side on, and he probably 6 or 7 strides there. That leg that was closest to you was out in front, and that triangle was open for you to just
do nothing with.
We'll do better this year.
And then lots changed this year, a whole different setup, and I obviously consulted a heap of people, and someone's helped me with a much more simple setup with the sighting system and my release and all that sort of stuff. And it's something I've really been working on this year, is shooting, knocking an arrow quickly, drawing back, and taking sort of not an eternity to get that shot off. So hopefully, we'll a bit more confident this year, but we'll see how we go. But
do you want to go back to Fight Lift Hunt? I think you said his name was. Yeah, the calling. I can only talk about what I've done. I use my raw to locate. Once I locate an animal and the wind's right and the time's right, geography's right, I make a move on that animal. My main purpose is to get a look at that animal and then decide whether I'm going to spend the next, I don't know how long, working on him. It might be 5 minutes. It might be 5 hours. It could be 5 days if he's worth it. That's how I utilise a raw.
With your raws, Kevy, so we've got some props here, mate, you brought in with you.
Some props.
Yeah.
That's just a Rawhorn, mate. I've been carrying that around since I was 17, so 31 years now. And my dad cut that off of an old Hereford skull for me, and that's True Oil on it, what they used to use. I don't know if they still do it, for varnishing wooden gun stocks. It's called True Oil, but it's actually like a lacquer. Needs a bit of a revamp, but yeah, no, it's called in a lot of deer.
I can oath it has. I've heard it, and it puts out a really. I'm lucky enough to have. I'm not sure if it's the other half of that one, but your brother. Obviously, I chatted about it, but your brother give me one that your dad gave him as well, which is a treasured possession, which I'm hanging on to. But yeah, she certainly puts out a pretty awesome sound, which sort of reverberates across the hills. There's other things as well, isn't there? There's other, or you got like a.
This is what I do on the education weekends. Looks like a bit of vacuum cleaner pipe. Very useful.
Pool. It almost looks like a pool, like a.
It is. It's go to Bunnings.
Yeah, pool pipe, like a pool cleaner pipe. Yeah.
Yep. It's just a 1 metre joining pipe for pool. There's about 33 centimetres of it. I give these to the boys in the education weekends to teach them how to raw, even though this year they were a little bit shy and nobody really wanted to have a go because, surprisingly, none of the boys had ever heard a deer raw, which was, like I said, surprising but also cool. So I could have made any sound and they would have bought it. But, they're like $9 for a metre length. And cut her off 1/3 of it. It's got a nice plastic rim around the end of it, and it makes a hell of a noise. And I'm actually going to carry this one this year because I can bend it behind me, and I can throw my voice, and I can throw my voice with it a lot better than using this.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's if you've been in the paddock, you can really mistake the proximity of a stag by which way he's turning, because he can sound miles away.
Yeah.
But he's right in front of you because he is roaring directly away from you. So utilising this, you don't need to go and spend a lot of money on a tool to do this. Like I said, there's $3, and I might actually give it a run this year. I'll leave Old Faithful in my pack, and might show people how easy it is to call in a deer with a $3 piece of plastic. There's not everybody's got a lot of money to spare, and for the budget conscious, it's pretty cool.
I want to give her a bit of a rip. I don't know how it's going to come through the mic, but some people haven't heard a deer roar, but give her a bit of a...
Bit out of practice, been since last year, mate.
Sure, I'll put you on the spot here. Yeah, it comes.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah, it come across pretty good.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do after 25 years. And like you said, I think when people who are super experienced or been doing this a long time, like, fuck, give us your raw, you're like, it's always a bit of a game. And I've seen you do it to me, I've seen you do it to a couple other people. And it's like, fuck, put me on the spot. But it's there's nothing to be ashamed of. Just fucking, practicing these shit. And I think I put a video up to you boys the other day. My kids have been sort of sitting around the kitchen, meh, meh,
Yeah. And that's
talking to each other,
So you've had minimal experience and you've just punched out exactly what you need to do. I try and tell the guys when we're teaching them, it's not the sound you make, it is when you make it. You need to read, you need to learn about the animal, you need to learn about their habits and their characteristics and what they do when they do it. And you can sound like the most retarded deer ever, but when you make that sound, that's what matters, and that's what will get them in. Now, this guy's asked, when do you not make a sound? Well, you don't make a sound when they're looking at you. You don't make a sound when you're going to give yourself up, your position up, especially when they're getting close. When do you make a sound? When you feel it's right. If they're walking towards you and they stop and they look behind them, if they've got their hinds behind them, as they look behind them, give them a hind call. If they start walking again, give a fawn call, then give a hind call. Not while they're looking for you, because they'll go, yep, they're over. I know why she's calling. She's got a young one with her. She's old enough to join. She's old enough to be in estrus. She's got a young one from last year. All of these little pieces of the puzzle go together to make you successful.
Kevin, sorry, mate. On that note there, I did notice that last year, a couple of times you've always would be throwing out hind calls, then you would throw a fawn call in. Can you give an example of what that might sound like?
The fawn or the hind?
Both. So, you're throwing out, you've given a roar to locate, you go, fuck, there's a stag over there, and then you start throwing out some hind calls, right? And then he might be getting a little bit closer, but he's not coming straight in. He might be he's like, he's on the fringes a bit, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. As Summer sort of said, I want to tempt him to make sure, I want him to know that I'm willing to go through this process because I've already got one from last year in a nice way, the nicest way I can say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So hind call is very simple. It's guttural. They've got quite a deep tone to them, and I sort of close off my nasal passage. Like when I'm teaching guys to do it, I say, hey, just grab your fingers. You'll learn to do it without it. Cover your nose up. That's all you got to do. I can do it without it because I just push my tongue up and close off the back of my sinuses and make the sound. For a fawn, it's similar to a fallow doe, but they're a bit more of a meow, meow, like that. But a red deer is like it's a bit more...
Like a ping almost.
Yeah, it is. And fawns are pretty vocal. They like knowing where mum is, and they will bounce that quite often. I've been stopped in my tracks by a fawn call before, and it just starts calling and calling and calling, and mum just gives one call and it just stops, and you'll see it just emerges from the bush and just walks across and just goes to mum. And that's what they do. And they're important. Those two calls are important because they're non-threatening to a stag. Now, a stag would rather have a shag than fight, mate. And a lot of stags, they will just...
Who wouldn't?
Oh, no, right?
Well, hang on, it depends.
So there's a lot of bluff with a red stag. They will parallel walk. They will do a lot of things to avoid a fight. But when push comes to shove, if another stag is going to have a proper crack, they'll punch on, which you don't get to see very often. I've probably seen, I don't know, five proper fights in all my years where red stags punch on properly. Fallow, they'd rather have a fight than a feed.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah. For a small animal, they're fucking quite aggressive.
Oh, they're cranky buggers. Yeah. They play for keeps too. But yeah, these guys, if you are not threatening them or their harem, you can sit and play with them for a long time.
Right.
It's still very important that you do not give up your position unless you are confident that you can bring that animal in or get yourself into a position where you can get an opportunity at that animal if you want to take that animal.
Yeah, cool. Mate, we could probably spend a whole episode on calls. You know, it's a hard
Never.
one, but I want to. It's a good question, and I knew, of course, it was going to come up. But yeah, there is probably some in both those podcasts as well. If you want to go back and have a listen to those, yeah, do that. There was one other question. The Fast House Honey Badger. He
Fast House Honey Badger. G. Grant. Grant Anderson. Yeah.
big fella, yeah,
Good bloke.
We're
Yeah.
calling him out here a little bit, but he sent one through to me today. He said the use of speakers. Can you ask Kev? You know, what's his thoughts on the use of an actual? I guess he's talking about recording a real sound of a deer roaring or hind call, and the use of that. What is his thoughts? I was like, whew.
Yeah. There's electronic deer callers out there. There is. Grant, geez, mate.
Disappointing, Grant.
Yeah, geez. mate,
Dad's
come on.
disappointed.
There's also apps on phones that you can run through, like a UE boom speaker. It's a good question, and a lot of guys utilise them, believe it or not. Like I just said before, you don't have to sound exactly like a deer. You really don't. It's about learning about that animal, the animal that you want to hunt, you want to get close to in its own natural habitat, learning how to do that by utilising sounds that are similar to them. You're never going to get it bang on. I don't get it bang on, but I get it close enough that I can fool them. So using, doesn't matter how good your speaker is, there's always going to be an artificial sound to it. You can't go and carry the latest Dolby digital bloody speaker thing around out in the paddock with you. I use your voice and stop. Yeah, it saves you carrying a heap of heavy shit around in the bush too. Everything's got to have a battery in it, right?
Plus movement and your, you know, the timing. As we're talking, it's all about the timing. You press and play. You press and this. It's
Yeah. How do you control that too? If you can make the noise with your own mouth, like I said, I can hind call or fawn call, or I can roar at full draw. My roar sounds absolutely terrible, but when I need it at full draw, if I needed it, maybe just to pull them up, just to give them a like that. You can't use your hand like it's you're at full draw. You've got nothing else to utilise. You know, some predator calls when you're calling in foxes and dingoes, you can step on them. They'll make a sound that you can use to call in that animal. But yeah, when it comes to roaring, calling a deer.
not so much.
Yeah, no. Learn to do it with your mouth. It'll help you out heaps.
Nice, mate. You touched on it before. There's a couple of questions come in on shot placement and shots and stuff like that. I'll get some water here, brother, as well. If you fucking
Dry as a chip.
sorry, mate. I'm off the piss at the moment. I only had one drink of Kev's liking in the fridge, and so I'm not the ultimate host today. Sorry, brother. Not quite as many beers as the last time we did this, but hey, it's early days.
Oh, God.
Early
On
days.
the floor.
Mate, getting back to it. So, yeah, a couple of questions on shooting the deer, especially during the rut. As you mentioned before, the deer is alert to our presence. We're calling it in, so there's a high chance it's going to be a frontal shot if you're calling it, especially if you're hunting solo. Mm-hmm. You touched on it. Yep. Ideally, if you do move off to the side, you'll give yourself a broadside. A better chance of a broadside shot, though. Distances for a frontal sort of shot, it's a little bit open, but when to take the shot. So distance wise, and let's say the animal was moving towards us. This is where I struggled last year. The animal was moving towards me when I finally saw him. Should I be waiting for that animal to stop and trying to pull the animal up? But if it's walking straight on, is it going to matter that much if it's still taking a few steps, if it's slowing down to sort of work out where I am, or should I be waiting for it to come to a complete stop?
I highly recommend that you wait for it to stop. I will shoot an animal on the move as a last resort.
Right.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to pull off with a bow, and you'll see some guys on social media. They'll pull off walking or running shots where they have to, but it's a last resort.
So I'm where I was last year. It's walking towards me. Should I try and pull it up with a little hind call or a little fucking fawn call or something just to make it go, bang, and then just before I shoot.
You are going to put it on high alert, but it will naturally stop anyway. If you've gone quiet, which that stag did, he walked up and he stood there and he just looked, right? But while he was walking up, he was looking the whole time. So he just came up and he's just like, well, I can't, where's this hind? And he's looking around looking for her. That's your time to shoot.
Yeah.
Right? If you're at full draw.
Yeah, and that's the key as well. You know, it's fucking hilarious for me or for everyone else, not for me or you. But drawing back early, you know, getting off, we've sort of diverged and gone off that subject a little bit, but fuck, they'll get you napping quick. So, you know, draw back. If you think they're coming, and Ben Solaro sort of mentioned this to me last year as well, he said, just fucking draw back, mate, because they'll be on you before you know it, and that's exactly what happened. But, you know,
even if they're walking towards you and they go behind a bush, you should already have your bow up in front of your face, have your release aid on, and as soon as that little bit of interference is there, you've got to practice being able to just go, fucking boom, getting it out, and then it's out in front of you. The rest just happens from that.
Cool. Yep. So then we're going to try and wait for it to, and if it just slowly keeps walking towards you, I guess, just be patient, and then if you have to pull it up with something that doesn't last resort, but be prepared to shoot basically as that sound comes out, right?
Yep.
Be prepared to let that shot crack.
Yep. They, like I said, they will pull up, and sometimes they will walk up towards the sound and they'll naturally veer off either way because they're looking, they're on the search for where the sound's coming from.
Yep.
So,
Red Deer jump the string. Are you aiming a little bit lower? If it's a frontal shot, are you going to aim a little bit? Will it still jump that string on a frontal, or is that more broadside?
It'll still jump the string on a frontal. Absolutely, maybe even more so. Their eyesight's incredible, right? And the sound and everything going on, even just from the sound, like if they're close, the sound of your bow, like my bow is really quiet, but it's not silent. And the sound of that is going to startle them to a point where they're just going to go, shit, straight away. Now, that target that's the size of a golf ball, a tennis ball to shoot into on a frontal shot, there's a lot of bone from the neck, right? And then you've got your shoulders. So you've got this heavy bone for the spine, which is the neck. And then you've got your shoulders and you've got your brisket underneath that. So right underneath that where your spine runs, that's where you want to shoot. And it's not a big target. If they drop, even if it's only 4 inches, you're going to hit straight into the heaviest bone on the body, which is their vertebrae, their neck, which is on a stag. At that time, like it's designed for impact, right? It's pretty tough bone. It's maybe not as heavy as the hip bone, but it's significant. I've seen plenty of deer drop with a spinal shot, but never a frontal spinal shot. That's out there.
Yeah, okay. Mate, markings on the animal as well. I think we talked about that a bit last year of where to shoot. I think is it where they're sort of on their fur, on their hide as it's coming down. There was a bit of a I think it was where it sort of comes together.
Yep.
On the front of wasn't far from that sort of location.
It drops down in a V as a stag gets sexually mature.
All right, buddy, just knocking over it. You're right.
Killing things.
No, you're right.
As a stag gets sexually mature, they grow like a mane on their neck during the rut. Outside of the rut, they just look like a hind on steroids, right? That's just the way they look. And as that comes in and forms a V, you'll see their brisket will always be dark brown, and that comes down. It's usually darker as well. And yeah, just up in that where it comes to a V, just off if they're quartering really, really hard on, just go to the side of it, whichever side that is. But that's your soft spot. Like when you want to stick an animal with a knife and aim for its heart, that's the same spot. It'll just go straight in. It's soft as. My big rooster stag, I shot him frontal. in that spot, and my arrow came out right beside his arsehole and kept going. I never found that arrow. There's nothing in there to stop it.
Yeah, okay. Cool, mate. We spoke about the bedded shot as well there. Are we at risk of like not jumping the string, but almost the reverse on that one? So are we going to aim a tiny bit higher because it's a chance it's going to stand up, or what do we think of there?
No, they're not going to stand up. By the time you shoot, you let fly with the arrow. They're not going to get to their feet that quickly. It's a different sort of reaction to dropping. A bedded animal cannot drop any further than where it is. What you do come up against is ribs coming together while they're bedded. They push together. So if it's on the offside where they're curled around, the ribs will be open. On the inside, they'll be more closed up, and you will have the shoulder blade there too because it's tucked up as well. But on the other side, it's the opposite, right? So all of those ribs will be open, and you can slip an arrow in there really, really easily. When it comes to bedded shots and a hard angle on them, if you're using mechanical broadheads, fucking don't forget about it.
A chance of rib running it?
Yeah, rib running, just gone. Yeah. Seen it heaps. Haven't seen much success with mechanical broadheads on bedded shots. Yeah,
cool. Okay, yeah, some good points there, mate. And I think all these little questions you have when you sort of get yourself put in that position, you're like, fuck. Hopefully, some of these and the shooting ones and that, hopefully people who haven't sort of done it before or sort of very limited. When these opportunities do present a frontal or bedded, hopefully that information might ring in their brain a little bit and they can draw on that knowledge a little bit. A slightly different topic there, mate. A question from David was the quality of Queensland red stocks. Do you think it's increasing or decreasing since you've sort of started hunting them, mate? And why is that for what it is?
It absolutely went through and probably still is on the verge of coming out of being really poor. I think the more that we talk about herd management in Queensland, it's slowly getting out there. You still got cowboys, right? You still got people that just go out and they'll shoot a young 5x5 because he's got 5 points on each side instead of shooting the mongrel 3x3 that's the same age right beside him because the other one's got more points. But that just comes with age. I am not that ignorant to say that I didn't do the same thing when I was a teenager. But I learnt bloody quick. And it was pointed out by very significant people who know exactly what they're talking about, and it changed the way that I think about it. Well before I was 25. So, and I've been trying to teach people ever since. Hey, don't shoot that fella there. Even spikers, you can tell with spikers if they've got good length about them, and maybe even a little kicker off the top. That's an exceptional animal. You get spikers running around, they got like buttons on their head. Shoot that.
Yeah,
that thing needs to die.
And you're obviously, if you're shooting that, you're taking it for meat, right? So you might as well
right.
fucking shoot. It doesn't matter what its rack looks like if you're shooting a spiker.
That's your supermarket shopping right there. Mm-hmm. Again, supermarket shopping in head quality. Once every 5 years, leave the boys alone. Just shoot girls. I shoot enough girls for meat that I don't really worry about that rule with me, and I don't shoot a lot of stags. But if you're a rifle hunter and you go out for trophies only and a little bit of meat from those animals, once every 5 years, leave the boys alone and shoot a couple of girls. It stops that inbreeding process, and it just helps with the herd. And you'll see wherever there's a smaller concentration of deer, your genetics are better, especially when you've got sort of the same amount of stags as what there is girls. Like the Wapiti Foundation, if you get a chance to watch the Wapiti Foundation's YouTube video on the journey of the Wapiti in New Zealand, it's exceptional. the trials and tribulations that they've been through to end up with the herd that they've got. They go in an aerial shoot the shit out of anything that's not worthy every year with choppers. Anything that looks like it's predominantly red, it dies because they're trying to encourage that wapiti, that line, and they know that the females carry most of the genetics for that. But the good bulls, the big creamy bulls that look all elk, they're protected, and even to a point where it's really frowned upon to shoot an immature bull during the rut, as in that ballot. Yeah.
Mate, one question I've talked to you about before is, you're calling a deer in, and it's hard for people with not a lot of experience to work out the difference between, say, it is a 5x5, a young 5x5 to me, trying to pick it. We talked about the body shape and stuff like that. Can we sort of touch on that a little bit, because it's fucking hard for someone who hasn't been doing it for a while to go, fuck, this looks like a fucking good deer. How do I know I'm not shooting a really good quality young deer who we should probably want to keep in for the genetics rather than that mature sort of old boy? What's his body shape look like? What's a couple of things we can look for on the run to go, yep, he's good to go?
Yeah. It all goes hand in hand, right? Age increases the ability for them to grow bigger antlers. And so your antlers will be heavier, should be heavier. They'll be longer. They'll have longer points. That the coronet, which is the band around the bottom of the antler, that'll be, their pedicles are low, so that coronet is closer to their skull.
The older they get.
The older they get. So that pedicle gets shorter as they get older. As far as body composition goes, older animals are deeper in the chest. They're heavier in the chest. They've got no arse end on them. They go through that hyper vigor very, very quickly leading into the rut. So they get really heavy in the neck and really muscular in the chest. If they're not sexually mature or not a mature animal, they just don't carry that muscle mass about them. They can look impressive, but if you ever get an opportunity to look at a mature stag with a stag that's a few years younger than him, it sticks out like the proverbial dog's balls, mate. Yeah. The difference. So a big mature stag will walk with his head down. He'll carry his head down, thinking, "Oh, Jesus Christ, here we go again, another young bastard I've got to flog." But a younger stag, he'll prance and he'll be up with his head in the air and cocky to a point of being cocky. The older stags aren't always the herd animals. You'll get younger up and coming stags that'll take the herd. They got no arse end on them. The older stags, absolutely no arse. Yeah, right. Look like a 40-year-old man in a pair of skinny jeans. Some of them. Yeah. So there's a lot in it. I can share something with you that you can share at the same time as putting out this podcast if you like. Yeah. That'll help people.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's about learning about your animal. It's the same as calling. It's learning about their characteristics. All of this stuff is available online to be able to see stags at different age groups and be able to help you to recognise age in an animal.
Yeah, it's just time out there too, isn't it? I remember last year you guys were like, he's a fucking 5x5, this and that. And I'm like, and you were talking about all these things, and I'm like, fuck, I'm looking through the same binos here, but it's so hard. I'm just like, holy fuck, yes, he looks like a great animal, but I find it hard to focus on his ass, looking at his rack.
That's the biggest problem, mate, with green guys. And you're a bit more experienced now, so you're a different tone of green. But
yeah, I'm still green though. Yeah.
It's hard to get the focus off the antlers, and that's what really drives the excitement. It's the same as telling people, "Hey, don't roar the deer flat out." It's really hard to say that to guys who are learning because it's exciting. They make a noise, and a wild animal makes a noise back, so they go, "Fuck, that was cool. Let's do it again." And they roar again, and he roars back. And they roar again. He roars back and they roar again and he's gone quiet. Oh, boy, I'll roar again. No. I'll roar again. No. But you go and make a hind call, brrr, he'll spark up again because now he thinks there's a retarded stag there
with
the
potential.
girl.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
But just to get back to the genetics, we're working on it. They went to shit. They went to they nicknamed double fours Queensland Royals.
Right.
Like a Royal should be a 6x6, right? So Sir Royal, outer off Royal, and a Royal tying on top. The 3 points on top like a cup. That's a Royal Red. And they started nicknaming double fours Queensland Royals,
Right.
which is a shame. There's a lot of old double fours out there, but if he's a double four at 2.5 years old, so first head past the spike, leave him live. If he's a double two,
maybe not.
He's coming home in the freezer if you get an opportunity.
Yeah.
Double three, same thing. You can be as hard on the genetics in your block as you want to be. At the end of the day, we're bow hunters. You take your opportunities where you get them. But if you have a beautiful young 6x6 stag or 5x5, you really need to consider what the potential that does for your herd. Like I said before, most of the genetics are carried by the female. Hey, but it doesn't hurt having a beautiful stag there with good antler growth to mate with your good females.
Yeah.
That's the other part of the equation. It might be 70% with the girls, but if he's a good male, why not kill all the crap and let him mate? Get rid of the crap. Yeah.
Yeah. It sort of leads me on to the next one. I think was a question was, there's a lot of chat about cull heads. Oh, this is a cull head. Like someone put a question out there. What, in your opinion, is a cull head? Because some people, it's just something that's thrown around a lot that I think is maybe not understood by a whole lot of people exactly what that is.
I think cull head for the guys, and if you don't know, you don't know, right? But cull head is used a lot for guys who shoot an animal and good on them with a bow. They get an animal and it gets ground shrinkage. And the first thing that comes, they need to justify what they've done to social media or whatever by saying, oh, it was a cull head. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff be called cull heads before, and some of it are outstanding genetics that they just did not understand. And that's all right. Like, each to their own. Be proud of what you've done, what you've accomplished. Not everybody can go and shoot a deer with a bow, can they? It's
fucking hard. Yeah.
It's fucking hard. It's hard. Yeah, cull head to me is inferior genetics that will never, ever be an advantage to your herd.
Right.
And if you do the animal justice that you're hunting, like I think I know a bit about red deer, you look up we've got so much information available to us so easily. You look up good genetics in red deer and you will see what good genetics look like. We will never, in Queensland, I shouldn't say never, it's a long way to come back to having outstanding genetics in Queensland. My grandfather had double eights, double nines that he shot in the Brisbane Valley down around Linville and Moore. Go and find a good head down there now. Yeah, it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right.
But they are there.
Too many of them been taken out of the breeding stock.
Yeah, that's right. And then the inferior animals that may have been inbred, or line bred, as you might want to call them, they get a chance to breed because the big fella that should have been bred, and he's been shot and he's been left. So nature just takes over and
in they come.
They come. To me, if he's 2.5, which is, that's your first head past a spiker, and he has got, like, I'll let a 3-4, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if he's a double 3 or a double 2, he's food to me.
Yeah. Okay.
If he's 3.5 and he's a double 4, he'll just get a pass. If he's 4.5 and he's still a double 4,
he may not be going to produce anything further than that.
Yeah. there's a theory out there, if they don't grow bay tines, they never have bay tines. I've always run with that theory. I've never been proven otherwise, but some people don't agree with that. There was, back in the heyday of velvet, what would you say, when people were harvesting velvet from farms, that they targeted animals that didn't have bay tines because it put more into the main beam, which is where the money was. And there's definitely bloodlines out there that don't grow bay tines. And they're out there. You see them. If it doesn't have bay tines to me, it's burgers. Yeah. It's sausages. But if it is, again, a saint, and it might sound contradictory, but if he's got no bay tines, but he goes up and he's 3.5 years old and he's got 4 points on each top, he gets a pass.
Yeah, okay.
Because the girl that he mates with may have the bay tine genes that he lacks.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, good info there, brother. So, sort of on the same thing, or along the same lines, we had a question, I think it was from Jack, saying if there was some sort of management system in Queensland or in our country for the management of deer, what would that look like to you? I think you asked like tag system or something like that. Like how the US sort of does it, or what would you see as a concept? I know it's a big question, but yeah,
it's a bloody good question. Again, I've done enough podcasts now where I've probably touched on this before. The management of our herd, there is no management of our herd except for people who take the initiative to look after the herd that they have the privilege of hunting themselves. Now, a lot of guys don't give a shit about the deer herd. That's fine. That's their prerogative. For me, though, it's a valuable resource, and it should be a valuable resource to our government. There's the tag system in America would work. We've got the numbers here now for that to work in Queensland. And I think if it was adapted all over Australia for deer that are not at a, what would you say, plague proportion, it'd work really, really well, giving out so many female tags, so many male tags, but on those male tags, there should be a certain amount of 4x4 and less. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So many trophy tags, 5x5 and over, and limited to those numbers, and policed as heavily as well. It's a federal offence in the States, for God's sake, to shoot an animal without a tag. It should, Roosevelt, he had his head screwed on, right? When it came, he saw the resource for what it was, and it potentially could have been wiped out over there. But no, it's, I think bow hunting, and I could be wrong on this, bow hunting is one of the biggest industries in America.
Yeah, right.
It's part of the schooling. Archery is massive. And that's not to say that it's not just bow hunting, right? There's a lot of bloody rifle hunters out there that love our deer just as much as what any bow hunter does. And no doubt it's quite frustrating for them too. They're the guys that can make a big difference, all right? Because 5 shots in a magazine potentially is five deer, whereas 5 arrows in a quiver, it might be a fox or a cat. It's a lot of boot leather and a lot of walking, but yeah, it's the guys that have got the opportunity to make a difference with a rifle, with those tools that are designed to be able to be utilised for managing a herd. Yeah, they're the guys that need to take on the responsibility for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Again, because you can make a good difference or a really fucked difference really quickly, right?
Yep.
Cool, mate. A couple other ones here. We've obviously been going for a while, but another question was tips on, or will you eat a deer in the rut? And if so, is there a cooking technique or an aging technique or anything to try to get some of the, everyone talks about a ruddy stag sort of not tasting amazing, but is there anything you got to offer there for that sort of stuff, mate?
This might shock people. I'll eat a rutting stag before I'll eat a hind that's in estrus. I think Summers and I approved this last year. We freezers were empty, and the property that we hunt on, like I said, I'll shoot a hind. I've got no problem doing that. I'm a bow hunter. I'm an opportunist. Shot a hind, young hind. You would think that she wasn't a yearling. I'd say she was in her first year, but she was in estrus. You could smell it as soon as you got near her. What a stag sees in that, I do not know. But she did not eat well at all. And her meat stunk. But I still ate it, of course. I just mixed a bit of beef in with it to make it a little bit more palatable for my family. It doesn't bother me that much, but my family picked up on it. We shot a stag 2 days later as well, full rut stag, and he was amazing. So what do we do that's different? Well, we've got the luxury of having a coal room. Mm-hmm. And any stag that's shot, straight away as soon as I shoot him, his pizzle comes out and his balls come out. And that's just something I was taught from my dad. I don't even know if it really makes a difference. I'm not willing to find out. No. It's just something that I do. Yeah. There's also leaving that hide on. Now, there's a big strip down the front of the stag that he urinates on and ejaculates over, and he's got it all over him, and anything like that you sort of try and remove. Mm-hmm. But we leave the hide on so that the meat doesn't dry out in the cold room. Now, that cold room with a stag, that stag will be in there for 7 days. Right. Just chilling, just purging, hanging upside down.
Gutted and bled, obviously.
Gutted and bled. Bleeding's really important, which is hard to do if you shoot a trophy animal, right? Getting that artery cut to get all the blood out of the meat as quickly as possible. That's, these are all practices I've learnt in the meat industry over the last 30 years. It's important for the quality of the eating quality. So as much as you will probably not want to eat your trophy stag, you're missing out. You might see a lot more purging when you cook the meat because you didn't have the opportunity to bleed him as well. But that's also the beauty of bow hunting. Yeah, they bleed so heavily internally.
You double lung it with a good arrow or a good broadhead.
Yeah. And you shoot it through the heart, it's bled. It is bled. They run off and they're pumping out like 500 mils in every step, and it's out both sides. You've got a litre of blood going. Like a full-grown stag, he probably carries between 7 and 10 litres of blood. They pump it out pretty bloody quick. It's incredible.
Yeah, okay, cool. Any different ways of cooking it or anything like that would differ? Like knowing that it has been a running sort of stag, like are you mincing it more, or are you making snags rather than sort of eating the steaks, or it doesn't matter?
I'm a big believer in mince. That's why I sell minces. Yeah. And you utilise a lot more of the body by using mince. But cooking techniques, burgers, all your prime cuts, so your back straps, your eye fillet, your rib fillet, your porterhouse, your rump, your top side, your silver side. I don't know if you've tried the corn silver side that we do with the pineapple. No. Oh, mate, it's amazing. We don't boil it. We pump it, and then we let it sit in that corning solution, and we roast it or smoke it. Oh, it's so good. And I'll do that with a fully mature stag out of the raw. I've got no problems doing that at all. It's the other cuts that aren't your primal cuts that I just utilise for sausages, mince.
Awesome.
Yes, anything else that I can add flavour to. It's just too valuable a resource for me to waste it. I can't waste a deer.
Yeah, nice. Mate, another one was, I'm just trying to get through as many questions as I can for the people that have bothered to send them in. Thank you to everyone who has. Shooting a hind, when's the cutoff for you in relation to how pregnant it is? You know, obviously the raw or the ruts on are going to fall pregnant at some stage. Like, what stage of the year will you be like, nah, because it's going to be a 2-for-1 here, honestly, if you shoot it?
I suppose it's a bit silly, right? Because after the rut, probably, and it's a good season, you're probably looking at 75-80% of hinds are pregnant. I think it's more for the way my own brain works, is that when I gut them, that I don't see the fetus, and I don't feel bad about it. So anything after sort of like September or leading up to August, September, I won't shoot a girl because it's this where, you know, if I shot it in July, it's still pregnant. I just don't get this.
Yeah.
I don't get to see the what I've done. But
Gestation period?
it is around the 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And again, you know, we've got all of this information available to us that a girl will keep cycling until she gets joined. I've shot a roaring stag in June.
Because there was obviously
A girl that hadn't been joined, and she just kept cycling every 19 to 21 days.
until it happened. Okay.
Yeah. So back when I was a rifle shooter, of course. But but with the girls, sort of like August, September, and then I won't touch them again until, because they have their fawns in December, right? But then they've got to look after them. So it's sort of there's a small window, but I will not. I prefer not to shoot a girl during the rut, and it doesn't make sense to, right? But that window after the rut, that's good because they just start feeding. They just start feeding and feeding and feeding and feeding, and they're quite good to eat then. And the rut's over, but you want as many girls as you can for the rut because that's what brings the fun on.
Yeah, cool. Mate, one of the questions was, you know, looking for them and finding them outside of the rut, and you sort of touched on it there. After the rut, it's a pretty good period to let their guard down a bit, and even the boys they'd be out feeding, I imagine, to try to get some of that weight back on.
Head down, ass up, as best feed as they can find. Remember that they are browsers; they're not grazers. But Jesus, if you've got anywhere around you that has your property that's got oats, lucerne, any sort of crop in, that's where the boys will be.
Just smashing it.
Yep, just smashing it, just trying to get calories into themselves and put their condition back on. Yeah, because they do lose a lot. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. I think there was one of the last ones was... when will they cast? When will the boys sort of cast their antlers how long after the rut? And when will they sort of start immediately growing back? Yeah,
they do. So for it to cast, the velvet actually starts under the hard antler, and it sort of cuts off. The circulation gets cut off to that. So when the antler drops off, you'll have a little rim of velvet there, and then a scab, like an open wound on top, and it scabs up really quickly. They will start casting depending on their age. So the older the animal, the earlier they cast.
Because they want to grow back as quick as possible.
It's still 100 days,
right?
But they will. Yeah, it's still 100 days, and that's why they're such a medical marvel. They grow this external bone from 0 to 100 centimetres long in 100 days.
It's the fastest growing organism or something, I think, isn't it? They reckon?
There's some information about it, but that's why velvet being farmed was so important and so valuable for medicinal purposes, because they just can't explain how this animal does this. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But they will start. Big old stags will start casting at the end of August.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen a hard antler stag or hard velvet stag at the end of December.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it gets straight into it.
Yeah. September, October, most of them will cast.
I just seen one of these fuckers. They're that big, and there's just like a little, I mean, you don't fucking see them, of course. They're hard to find.
Yeah.
They obviously just goes to the bush. But imagine seeing this big fucking stag with this, tiny little, as it's starting to grow throughout the year, he'd look fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
They look like hinds. They honestly look like hinds.
I shot a spiker. That's not a spiker, mate. Fucking massive spiker.
I see a lot of stags that get shot under spotlight, and they're just magnificent stags, but they're in early velvet growth and they're fat and they look amazing. People shoot them and go, well, he was crap anyway. No, he wasn't.
He just wasn't ready yet.
No, it's in growth, right? So, but people, again, people's just, they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And maybe they don't care, but yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, man, there's a lot of information in there. I think we've sort of been ticking over for an hour 40 now, so we'll probably wind it up there. Anything else we sort of forgotten about, Ring, or you wanted to sort of touch on before we sort of wrap it up?
I just really want to encourage people to take the time. Don't be in a rush in the bush. Take the time to get to know the animal. Sit back and watch and enjoy them. They are really special to watch when you've got no other motive other than to learn about them. If you're not in a hurry to kill them, or if you've already taken an animal for the year and you've got some days up your sleeve, go and spend time in the bush with the animals, and keep at a distance where you're not going to disturb them, or you're happy where you don't think you're going to disturb them. There's always going to be things that happen. And sit and watch, observe, and learn. I learn every time I'm in the bush. Deer will surprise me with something that I didn't see coming, or something I've never seen before, and it just doesn't stop. And that's after 30 years. They're very, very cool animals, and the rut is a very special time of the year to spend the same space as them in the hills. It's cool. It's exciting. It's fun. It's hard work, but enjoy them for what they are, not for what social media wants them to be for you. Unfortunately, that's a thing. Don't fall into those pitfalls if you can help it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. A couple of little dot points I sort of just wrote down at the end as well was, like, good luck to everyone in this rut, and basically what you said, enjoy them for what they are, and just see. If you haven't heard them roar before, it's one of the most amazing things. It's such an awesome time to be out there. If you can, kick yourself for just 2 seconds and go, hey, just fucking take all this in. Like, actually, don't get tunnel vision. And I've been there, but this year I really want to just like actually look around and go, holy fuck, who cares if I shoot one or not? I mean, it'd be great if I do, but if they're out there and they're roaring around you, like, just sort of take it all in and go, this is fucking unbelievable. Most people would never get to experience this in their life, and just enjoy it for what it is without feeling that pressure, because people are going to be dropping stags left, right and centre, putting these huge ones on social media and shit, and comparing yourself to that, going, fuck, I'm not doing it, I'm not having a good day, or I can't, like, just enjoy it for what it is, right?
Yeah, and be proud of your accomplishment. Don't measure yourself on what everybody else is doing. We've said it half a dozen times this evening. It's hard work, and that meat can be more valuable to you than the likes on Instagram, right? So, it's a privilege. It's not a God-given right to be able to hunt these animals, right? It's a bloody privilege that we have, and we need to look after it, and we need to do the right things by it. So,
love it, mate. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Just finally, I just want to say a massive thanks for you for coming into the studio here, giving up your time. We spoke about this on the podcast there from the Bowhunters butchering course that you guys ran a couple of weeks ago. It's a big thanks to the senior guys in the community for sharing this knowledge and being so open and stuff like that. So thank you very much for giving us young or green bow hunters. I won't say young because I'm old as fuck these days.
You're not called a Hemi old, mate.
Well, I thought I felt a twinge the other day, but nah. But more importantly as well, I've sort of got to know you boys, and we've got a bit of a little hunting crew sort of going on at the moment, which seems like a real good bunch of fellas. And I think, to be honest with you, I reckon my life is a whole lot better in the last sort of 12 months from sort of meeting those boys and hanging out with you guys. So thanks for what you do in relation to knowledge sharing, but also more importantly to you and Summers and all the boys in that crew there. Thanks very much for your friendship, because it means a lot to me. So
Means a lot to us too, mate.
thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, mate.